Welcome to From Rome Info video. My name is Brother Alexis Pagnola. I'm the publisher and editor of FromRome.Info, an electronic journal for news and commentary about the Vatican, the Catholic Church, Rome, and Italy. Here live from the borders of Vatican territory to cover the wake of His Holiness Pope Benedict the 16th, Vicar of Christ, Roman Pontiff, Patriarch of the West, Bishop of Rome. We had the sadness here in Rome to learn quite unexpectedly a little after 10 in the morning that the Holy Father had passed away on Saturday morning. And the Church of Rome has been in mourning since. I am for FromRome.Info on this YouTube channel and published at my website. I'm doing 4 reports every day. 2 in Italian and 2 in English, for the sake of my viewers and readers around the world. This is the English language service for Monday morning, the Feast of the Holy Name of Jesus. And as you can see, tremendous crowds are already gathering. Matter of fact, the city of Rome has already divided the Via Conciliazione with barriers, evidently expecting more than 100,000 people to come and see Pope Benedict's mortal remains lying in state. The doors of the Papal Basilica will open at 9 in the morning, and the wake will last all day until 7 in the evening, and again all day tomorrow. These are the only 2 occasions in which the mortal remains of the Holy Father will be shown to the public, and his coffin will be open so that one can view the body and pay one's last respects to so great a man and to our Holy Father. The Church of Rome is officially in Sede Vacante because Benedict, never having renounced the Petrine Munus, was the Roman Pontiff to the last day of his life. And we are seeing the continuing theatrical chorus of clerics and especially cardinals around the world as they pretend that that is not the case. As I have reported and mentioned, but maybe this is first time for you, we have all been victimized by a narrative trick back in 2013. Pope Benedict was not elected in 2005 because the cardinals wanted him, but because they thought they could keep their games going in the Curia and that he wouldn't notice or stop them. But Pope Benedict was a man of great faith and intelligence and also of purity, and he wanted to dedicate his pontificate to the cleansing of Christ's church so that it would be a safe harbor for the little ones, for families, for women, for children, and that the priests of the Catholic Church be of the highest integrity and moral character. In this, he had a zeal that went beyond all his contemporaries. And as little by little it came to be known in the Roman Curia and among bishops around the world and religious orders that Pope Benedict was not going to tolerate these sort of outrages, which the news of which has become so common in recent years, he was more and more isolated. But Benedict was also a thorn in the side of the globalists. He was not in favor of using fetuses in medical experimentation or the development of vaccines. He was not in favor of the dictatorship of international finance. He thought it was a grave threat to human society and human liberty that the power of the world had been transferred from states to banks. He was also a fierce opponent to the manipulations of the media. The mass media, as you know, something that has come into being in the last 200 years, became very important weapon of statecraft in the Second World War, and that never ended. So that major newspapers, televisions, and radio stations, for the last 80 years, have been pushing narratives selected by politicians, governments, and other parties who have influence or control of governments, secret agencies. And just 3 days after Pope Benedict resigned the Petrine ministry on February 11th, 2013, that is on February 14th, he met with the clergy of Rome, and this is what he talked about. How the Second Vatican Council was misrepresented to the world because what everyone heard was what the journalists told you. But that's not what the text said. That the Council's texts were much more Catholic and less nefarious than they had been given to imagine. And that the Council never approved of things like the spirit of the Council. Wemhoff, in his book Time and Life, American Proposition, I highly recommend that book, showed that the concept spirit of the Council was created by the U.S. Department of Defense and launched through their CIA networks in Time Life magazines around the world. And that was so that the entire meaning of what the Catholic faith is and would be under the control of journalists at the pay of the United States Department of Defense, who had decided in 1953 to wage an ideologic war against the Catholic Church to destroy her from within and make America appear to be the savior of the world. I am a dual citizen of the United States and Italy for the sake of transparency, and I have skimmed the book of Wemhoff, and I'm totally convinced that his thesis is not only well documented, but is the absolute historic truth. And I believe Pope Benedict read that book during his pontificate. So when he saw that no one in the Roman Curia was listening to him anymore, and no one would obey him, and that his efforts to punish Cardinal McCarrick and the Legionnaires of Christ undermined the last two pillars of support he had in the Roman Curia, there was nothing left for him to do but resign the ministry and separate himself entirely from the College of Cardinals and the higher clergy, who didn't want the club, the priestly club, to lose its position. And so what he has been doing for 10 years has not been understood by anyone, because though he has explained it in a very subtle way, and every occasion he has been allowed to speak, he was effectively imprisoned in the Vatican and not even allowed to read newspapers or the internet or watch more than a certain channels on television. And everyone around him either was unaware what was going on or were part of it. And so now we see an entire chorus of clergy pretending that Benedict abdicated when he didn't, and that there's nothing extraordinary about the death of Pope Benedict. But already there's been lots of pushback here from the clergy of Rome. It was first announced that Pope Benedict would be buried on the 6th of February, on the Solemnity of the Epiphany, and then that was changed to the 5th to conform to the papal law for the funerals of popes. And then there was a debate on how he was to be vested, and finally he was vested as Roman Pontiff. And there was a debate on whether masses would be offered for him as Roman Pontiff or merely as a Bishop Emeritus of Rome. And on all those 3 points, those who recognize Benedict is the Pope won out. And so there are now masses, daily masses, in all the churches of the Diocese of Rome and the Suburban Diocese, and now throughout the whole world as news spreads, in suffrage of the Roman Pontiff. And during those masses, there's a special formula used where one does not say the mass is offered in communion with the Pope, but it's said in suffrage for the soul of the Roman Pontiff Benedict XVI. And so it looks like there has been somewhat change of winds here in Rome. And people are realizing that though the media have claimed we've had 2 popes for the last 10 years, we really only had 1. And everyone recognizes that Pope Benedict was the true pope. And so now you will see today here tremendous crowds pouring out from the city as the Roman Catholics bid farewell to the Vicar of Christ. Pope Benedict was a pope very misunderstood. very much maltreated. He was decried from the first day of his election, and he was insulted and trampled upon in his death, not only by the powers of the world that want the church to go along with the Agenda 2030, but also by voices in the church who should have been grateful for him for expanding the permissions on the Latin Mass. He was kind and friendly to almost everyone in the church, but he wasn't anyone's puppet or pawn. And those who have a vision of the church, it must serve them rather than Christ, didn't like Pope Benedict, who was entirely dedicated to the contrary thesis, even though it was in his own personal way. Here today, there will be the exposition of the Psalm of Pope Benedict. His body will lie in a coffin in the St. Peter's Basilica before the high altar. His head will be on the altar side, and his feet will be towards the people because he's a bishop. He's a bishop, and so he's a man of God, already consecrated. It will be interesting how today's event touches the hearts of the people of Rome. Benedict's been hidden away for a long time, and there have been lots of faithful who wanted to meet with him and were never permitted. Hundreds of journalists wrote letters asking to interview the Pope, and they were all refused. Only a few certain ones who would push the narrative that nothing happened and that Benedict resigned and everything was fine at the Vatican. And this is pretty much the news coverage you're going to be seeing around the world. Here at FromRome.Info, we are a unique English-Italian language news service where we are completely independent of the globalist dominant narrative. And so, though this is a transmission live on YouTube, at FromRome.Info you can see videos that I publish on that site, which are totally uncensored. There's many things I just can't say on YouTube because they'd shut me down, because YouTube is merely a tool for globalist narrative control. Only on small little channels like my own do they tolerate truth to get out. But I ask you to share this video and share it with your friends. And during my transmissions, I often have live chat on, and you can ask questions. Now, I don't think I'll be able to film the body of Benedict in state. I don't think they'll let me into Basilica. They certainly won't let me in with the tripod I use. So I'll just do my reports this morning from Rome. And then later this afternoon, I will do two more, one in Italian and in English. You should pay attention very carefully to the news coverage that is about Pope Benedict's death. If you look at it, you can, and you use your intelligence, you can start seeing that there's certain patterns which really make no sense. Why is there a constant harping on that his renunciation was valid, or that he abdicated, or that he's no longer Pope, or that he was a controversial figure? Why is there no talk of the isolation he was placed under for 10 years? Why was there no talk of the disobedience that just broke out in the entire church against him during his pontificate? Why is there no talk about how his act of renunciation in Latin was intentionally mistranslated and presented to the faithful under entirely different signification? A crime against a Roman pontiff, more intimate and more nefarious than any has ever been committed by the Roman Curia against the Roman. We saw a veritable push in 2013, and that regime has taken control of the Vatican and still governs it. And so much so that if you attempt to criticize that, you will be harassed by the local police, and I expect to be harassed shortly for occupying the public soil. We as Catholics need to be persons dedicated to the truth. In our holy religion, what we say is supposed to be in accord with reality. But we are now living in an age in which the Masonic lodges, the globalists, the World Economic Forum, want to totally enslave man in a system of thought.
Noi qua dobbiamo liberare tutto. Mi dispiace.
See, I just told you, here's a policewoman telling me she has to liberate everything, even though no one's using the space I'm on.
Questa è la via di accesso dei mezzi di sicurezza, quindi
Ah,
dobbiamo...
quindi posso mettermi qua?
No, deve mettersi lì insieme all'altra stampa, qua rimane tutto libero. Mi dispiace, ma oggi non può fare, non ci possiamo organizzare.
Dove posso oltrepassare la divisione?
E
Qua?
guardi lì dove sta passando l'ambulanza. Questo è il
Okay,
mezzo
she
di
wants me to
soccorso.
move because she says that I'm standing in the path for emergency vehicles. It couldn't possibly be used for emergency vehicles because it's blocked off. So they're expecting people to have heart attacks, feel bad, strokes. These things are becoming more and more common, and no one can explain them.
This way.
Let me move myself over here to see. Here at From Rome, we understand what's going on. That's why I can tell you what's going to happen before it happens. And here we go. I think this way I will get some of the crowd. And none of the police, because you can't film the police in Italy. That's illegal. So I'll probably be harassed here shortly too. So in the Catholic religion, we should submit our mouths to reality, or what we say should be based on what is real. We shouldn't try to create a world, a life, an existence where I am what I say I am, rather than I am what I am. And this error got introduced by Descartes, who tried to present reality as you are what you think, and that is a grave error. You should think that you are what you are, but you are what you think. You should think what you are. It's a complete inversion, and this Cartesian error is one of the dominant principles of international Freemasonry, because they want to make the world to be something that it's not. And to do that, they have to fool everyone into believing it is what they say it is. As it says in the Psalms, they have set their mouths in heaven and they dictate to the earth. I just had my photograph taken by Italian secret police here because I am a threat. And he's now probably going to report me. So, and we see this in the church. Pope Benedict spoke about this. This is the dictatorship of relativism, which is a system of thought where there's no absolute values of right or wrong, good or bad, justice or injustice. There is only what everyone feels, what everyone wants, equal liberty, equal expression. And if you buy into that narrative, you'll pretty soon find out that what that really means is what the globalists want, or what the modernists want, or what worldly and carnal people want, that is tolerated, not what you as a Christian want or believe. And we have progressed from the dictatorship of relativism to the dictatorship of ideology. There's no more free thought. There's no more free speech. These things aren't even considered inviolable. Matter of fact, those who are proposing these things just a generation ago now agree we should cancel them out of the vocabulary because some people are just too much a threat. Just as in a manicomium or a sanitarium for the insane, you might meet people who think they're Napoleon Bonaparte or the Roman Pontiff. But since you're in a sanitarium, you know they're just nuts. Nevertheless, if you try to talk to them, you will find that reason is really no instrument of help, because they could be highly rational and perfectly consistent. But what they're saying has nothing to do with the reality. But they will insist that you accept it's the case. and they can become violent and even very abusive. Well, when the society is properly ordered, those people are in a sanitarium. Here's another person taking a photo of me. I guess I'm a threat. And when a society is not well organized, they are in control of society. What happened in Nazi Germany when people of that kind were running the state? Horrible crimes against humanity. Horrible. And this is why every society needs to fight against corruption and see that the best govern and the worst are put away. And that requires an objective value system where right is right and wrong is wrong and black is black and white is white. And not a world in which ideology is reality and reality is a threat to the system. Even G.K. Chesterton once said that we are headed to a future in which those who say that the grass is green will be considered a threat to national security. And that is very much the case. If you say that a pope is pope because he holds the Petrine Munus, a battle will break out here in Rome, or people will just pretend nothing is going on. And they don't even care about the reality. I was talking to a very high-level canonist at the Gregorian University 3 years ago, and I said, well, whatever your opinion is on Munus and Ministerium, if you're a true supporter of Pope Francis, you should want that this doubt be put out of the case, because if Pope Benedict doesn't have the Munus, you certainly want him to receive it. What an explosion of anger that suggestion came. They don't want the office of Christ, but they do want the holding of power. And this is a blight on the church. We are not in an age of enlightenment or light. We are in a really dark age of criminality. And the church has not cleaned up her act on the question of pedophilia, child abuse, and sexual predation. It has been taken over by the people who should be locked up. And I'm not talking about people who committed the crimes, but people aid and abet that, or people who want to manipulate that problem in the church to keep themselves in power, or because they're not really there for the institution. So it's kind of like if workers in an art museum didn't apply for the job because they love great art and want to be there to help protect it and see that the people come to know it and appreciate it, but because they like the cafeteria and they like the furniture, and it's a plush job that you really don't have to do anything about. Imagine what would happen to an art museum with people like that if they actually became the director, the president of the museum. Would paintings start getting tomato sauce thrown on them during protests? Would artwork start getting robbed? Or would what is really pieces of junk start being displayed and praised as if it was great? And I use these analogies to help you understand the drama and the tragedy that is playing here at Rome, even while Benedict is being buried. They are literally trying to bury his memory alive and present it as if he was in agreement with them, when actually he was their greatest opponent. And if you use a little intelligence, you can figure that out, because if a Roman pontiff was dying and you were a high cleric in the church and he was totally in agreement with you, you wouldn't be trying to get him buried on a feast day, or stripped of his proper raiment, or having him ignored at Mass for prayers for his soul. You would be doing quite the opposite. So what we've seen in just the last few days verifies what I've been telling you, and contradicts all the news reports you're hearing about there being perfect unanimity and everyone is holding that Benedict was Pope Emeritus and had abdicated, and Bergoglio the true Pope. And so that's why you're hearing a unanimity, of course, between people like Cardinal O'Malley of Boston, who was one of Pope Francis's top 8 cardinals in the Commission of Cardinals, and Cardinal Burke, who was ousted from the Curia under Pope Francis. They're singing in unison in these days. So don't be fooled by that, because the criteria of truth is not consistency. The man in the sanitarium, he will never give up his story that he's Napoleon Bonaparte. He might even have memorized the entire Encyclopedia Britannica article on Napoleon, and you may not be able to detect anything fallacious about what he says, other than the fact that he's not Napoleon. And but that you won't find out from what he's saying. You got to open your eyes and look at him, and look at your watch. Look at the calendar, what year you're in, and then look at the title of the building you're in. And you're not on St. Helena's. So we must always verify what we hear with reality, documents, laws, and facts, and not merely accept what is presented to us. I was interviewed for ABC Nightly News 2 nights ago, and for 5 minutes, but they only gave you 5 seconds of what I said. What I was saying was a bit too shocking, I think, even though I was totally diplomatic and didn't say a tenth of what I've been saying in this report. So I hope you join me here for all my reports from Rome.Info, from the Vatican here in Rome, in these days that we commemorate the passing of the Holy Father Pope Benedict XVI. His funeral will be on Friday. That is on Thursday. That will be a ticket-only affair, and you have to go to the doors over here of the Apostolic Palace to get your tickets. And so it's not going to be easy to attend or even see. You might be able to, even in Rome, most Romans will probably watch it on television because it'll be very difficult to get in. They're going to cordon off almost everything. And as you can see at this distance, there's not much you can see. So now, before I conclude my service in English, I want to point out the color of St. Peter's Dome. There's like internet myths, and Anne Barnhart, who has a habit of catching on catchy things, she said, well, after Benedict died, the dome turned black. Well, this is a copper plate covered dome. Okay, so when it's new, it looks golden, and as it gets old, it turns kind of like a whitish green. They have been doing work to upgrade that and repair that recently, and they applied an acid, okay, to clean it. Many people said that you shouldn't do that, and as you can see, the acid is oxidizing, and so you get that slight dark gray tint on it. The dome has not turned black, and it's a cloudy sky this morning, so it would be a much brighter color if the sun's light was on it. So the other internet myth is that Benedict didn't die and there's someone else buried in its stead. So because the nose is a different shape or the face is a different shape. So you have to understand that when someone dies, the bodily fluids are taken out of him by a mortician, and also organs. So the actual shape of your body and skin has to do with the fact that you have your internal organs in you. Once they're taken out, all the other flesh that remains takes a slightly different shape. And I remember how much worse my mother looked after her death and when she was embalmed than she did just 3 days before, even though she died of dementia, and so she wasn't even eating enough to live. So that's just an urban myth. Don't believe in silly things like that, which I don't know if they're launched or so. The other report I want to address is that by Steve Bannon, who says several cardinals think that there should be a conclave. Well, he has presented no verification for that. And Steve Bannon is closely associated with the Skull and Bones Lodge, Donald Trump, and that lodge certainly doesn't want Benedict to have a successor. So I would kind of advise you to pay no attention to that report by Steve Bannon until you and wait until you hear some mainline stream media say it. Of course, we do have to use some discernment. There was a lot of news going on in Brazil lately, and you didn't find anything of it in the controlled media. So, but if any cardinal is going to say something, he will publish it somewhere, okay? And the cardinals will be very discreet until some decision is made. I would imagine if there are some of them who want to rectify the canonical doubt of Benedict's renunciation and therefore the election of Bergoglio, that they will at least hold a consistory in these days and discuss it among themselves in private first before making a unanimously approved announcement from the college. So don't incline lightly to believe rumors of that kind. Thank you for joining me here from the Vatican live at FromRome.Info. My name is Brother Alexis Pugnello. I'm the publisher and editor of FromRome.Info, an electronic journal for news and commentary. And you can find this video from Rome.Info, where you can leave comments in addition to on the YouTube channel. And I will do another one in English this evening or this afternoon from Rome. They will follow now immediately my report in the Italian language. God bless.